It is lights out and away we go. Hello racers, welcome to another episode of the Hard or Soft F1 podcast. I'm your host, Adrian Huff. Clearly, things are a little bit different. Me and RJ are not talking to each other this week. We had a fight. He talks about Mercedes too much, and I told him that I was just sick of it. As a Red Bull fan, it just pissed me off. So we had to take a break this week. And of course, I'm kidding. I'm in a different place than I usually am. I just moved, so in the process of that, I'm sharing this office, so hopefully I'm not revealing too much. But yeah, very exciting. Me and RJ are just extremely busy with work and obviously moving, so we have not been able to sort of come together to record, which is a shame because the Mexican GP was, let's be honest, it was boring. We wouldn't have too much to talk about this week, but we can talk about that Ross Chastain NASCAR clip because that blew up during the Mexican GP. It happened at the same time, and it was way more entertaining than anything that happened in Mexico, unfortunately. But it was still a fun weekend. Of course, Max just absolutely dominated. So yeah, we just got couple of things. Me and RJ are both gonna sort of do little segments, so we still have an episode release. Before I just quickly rattle off sort of my thoughts on everything. Again, sorry I don't have my mic stand either, so I'm cupping this ball, this blue snowball or black snowball, whatever. I've got a big black ball in my hand. That's all that matters. So we are continuing to do the show, even in the off season.
Hello, everyone. Adrian. I'll pretend to ignore that little slight against Mercedes. The first thing I want to discuss, Red Bull, the cost cap breach. Yeah, I'm a little sweaty, it's still on here. The cost cap breach, they got, $7 million fine, 10% of aerotime, which they're already getting the least amount of airtime, so that's 10% is less than it would be for another team. Now, I'm not going to pretend to be able to figure out how much of an impact 10% of aerotime is. My issue with it is just, I'm so sick and tired of this Red Bull. Oh, we're just, like, Christian Horner came out and said that it's just like, I forget the word he used, but basically saying like it's going to drastically change their season next year, and it's a huge penalty, like unprecedented, and blah blah blah. While everyone else is like, well, no, it's not really, like, it's not that big of a deal. So yeah, I'm glad they got a punishment for it, but it would have been nice to see it be a little more. I didn't expect them to take away points from last year, but I don't know. I mean, it remains to be seen until next year if it allows other teams to be more competitive than this year. But I don't know. I think it's just annoying seeing Red Bull. They're winning by a ton, and I know they've been in second place, and it's easier to kind of reach up and complain when you're in second place than it is first, because it seems like you're punching down when you're on top. But now they're on top, they kind of got to just change up the way they're doing things, because it's extremely annoying, and like this is why everyone's going to hate them. I understand people hate Mercedes because they were on top for a while, but say what you will about Toto, he and Lewis even, they'll say their mind as well. But it's just the whining, the constant whining from Red Bull. Like, they're so hard done by, and the world is so against them, and like you just dominated the constructors and the drivers' title. So I don't know. I guess it remains to be seen what actually comes of it next year. But at this point, I'm just sick and tired of hearing these Red Bull folks whining.
Yes, let's get into that. The first thing, sort of, Red Bull sort of officially had their cost breach penalty announced, and some people have been saying that the FIA went a little easy on them. I think that could be argued, but I think the penalty, the actual money penalty, I don't think is going to hurt them too much. It's like $7 million, something like that. It's like a drop in the bucket for Red Bull, let's be honest. But the wind tunnel time reduction, I think, could actually have like a pretty big impact on them. It will probably cost them a couple of seconds, or not a couple of seconds, a couple of maybe 0.02 of a second in lap time. But, in this sport, that is a big deal. So I'm sure they'll find other ways to finesse the system to bring more upgrades. But I think it's pretty fair. I don't think I need to go too much more into it.
Alright, Adrian, we got to talk about Fernando Alonso. This scumbag has just been pissing me off for years. And he's a good driver. Yeah, he's a good driver. He's a great driver. One of the best. But you just can't hold back making ridiculous comments about Lewis Hamilton. And this one, saying that Max's essentially, I'm going to paraphrase here, Max's 2 championships are worth more, or were harder fought for, or more impressive than Lewis's 7. And his argument for that was that because Lewis was only having to race against his teammate, to which I say, who else has Max had to race against this year? And last year he had to race against Lewis, so that's one person. Like, just a weird argument to make. Also, yeah, I'm not going to go too much into that because those two have it past, Lewis and Alonso. Remember, Alonso earlier this year said Lewis can only drive when he's in front. So obviously this is a thing that Alonso has thought for a while. He obviously thinks Lewis is not a good driver, and he obviously thinks Lewis is overrated and is not the GOAT, and his reputation is like he's just not worthy of what it is, I guess Alonso thinks. So I don't like to hear that one bit. Try to walk it back a bit. Just didn't do a very good job of it. I think now it's coming out that he wants to do 24 hours Le Mans with Max. Kind of a weird way to try and endear yourself to Max, but I guess Max also doesn't like Lewis, so I don't know. We'll see if it works. I saw that Max was maybe going to do it with Mick or someone else. It might not have been Mick, but I saw that Max is considering doing 24-hour Le Mans, but like the virtual one. So we'll see. I don't really know why Alonso feels the need to open his mouth on these things, but it is what it is. It would be kind of cool to see. I always do like seeing when F1 drivers do other like racing events, but just shut up, Fernando.
Alonso, yes, Fernando Alonso has been posting a whole lot. He's been talking about this for a while, actually, but he wants to race Le Mans with Max. And as far as I know, I thought you raced that with 3 people. I could be wrong. We might need to clarify next week. But imagine Le Mans with Fernando, Lewis, and Seb. That's what I want to see. Even though Fernando is a bit of a prick to Lewis, a little needlessly, but I still would like to see that. Max and Lewis in Le Mans, that would be the best combination, but that would never happen. So, yeah, the next thing, obviously, already talked about the Ross Chastain NASCAR clip. That was so fucking cool. I still think about that. I've watched it like at least 100 times. It is like what every guy that played the NASCAR video game, like everybody's done that. It's like so infamous. And Ross Chastain himself, I believe that's his name. Let me fact check that. But he even said that the game, he played it when he was a kid, and that he did that exact move, and that he actually was able to pull that off in real life to qualify for the championship race. Was just like really, 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 really cool. So let's see. Yes, Ross Chastain. That's his name. So that is so cool. The fact that he qualified and was able to make up like 5 places literally in the last corner. And the wall, some people are a little confused on how he was actually managed to pull that off. The wall isn't like a booster in Mario Kart. It didn't propel him. What he was able to do is since he was just grinding up against the wall where these drivers are slowing down to take the corner and not crash into the wall. He lined it up to where he could just fucking gun it, and it slingshot him because he didn't brake, and he just rocketed to the front, but he controlled it very well. I mean, he could have very well just slammed into the back of the guy that won. So still really, really cool move. Will Buxton had a really kind of a weird tweet about it, sort of saying that some people think it's the coolest thing in the world. Some people think it's the worst thing to ever happen in sports. I think he's just being a little bit of a dramatic bitch. Bitch is the wrong word to say. I shouldn't say that. It's just me trying to be funny. But yeah, Will Buxton is always over dramatic. It's, he had that whole thing with Austin with Brad Pitt, and even though there was technically a list, it's like his comments are like sometimes totally out of left field. So, and he denied doing a cameo for us. So you're not on my good side, man. I'm sorry.
Which brings me to my next complaint. I'm just complaining all episode this time, but I'm pissed off, okay? I expected Lewis to win, or at least battle, and he didn't even have a chance. So, I know I can already tell, Adrian, you're going to say that this was not a big deal, it was nothing. But, it goes back to what I said earlier. Red Bull, and they're complaining and whining. So, Ted Kravitz, I guess, made a comment about Max, about how he can't win a championship in a normal way. And clearly referencing how last year Abu Dhabi it ended in total confusion. This year, was it China or Japan, when Max won, they didn't know when they crossed the line that he actually won because there was a half points thing with the rain. It was very confusing. So that's all Ted was saying. But Red Bull saw this, obviously just took out the quote of Ted saying that Max can't win a championship in a normal, or doesn't seem to be able to win in a normal way, and threw a hissy fit and said they're boycotting Sky Sports and not talking to them all weekend, and et cetera, which ended up just being not even really a thing because they only did it for one weekend, and I saw that they were speaking with Sky Sports, like at least some people on Red Bull were. So you're professional. You guys are all professionals here. You're at the top of your sport. You can't just take your ball and go home if someone complains about you. Now, I guess their point is that, because this wasn't even a complaint that Ted had about Max or Red Bull, I guess they're saying that this is the tip of the iceberg, or the straw that broke the camel's back. They've been saying they're very biased towards Lewis or the British drivers and against Max all season, which, I mean, I haven't noticed, but I don't really look for that type of thing, obviously. I don't know. I think, I'm just trying to think of in any other sport, like, you can't just boycott the media. Like, that's part of the sport. They're like the conduit between you and the fans. So, just a very bizarre move. I'm glad it's only going to last for one weekend, because I'm pretty sure they realize, like, you can't really do this. This isn't a sustainable thing. But yeah, going back to Max not doing the Netflix, I know he's going back to it, and then they just have, and like I said earlier, with their complaining about the cost cap thing, like, they just always have to find their little angle to make it seem like the world's against them. And I know that's Horner's job, and he's good at it. It's extremely frustrating and annoying. Like, back to you, Adrian.
We can quickly run through. Last thing. Verstappen sort of boycotted Sky Sports, but that's ending in Brazil. So they did it for a weekend. It's not really a boycott. It's just kind of not even a boycott. It's just like they happen to not run into each other that weekend, pretty much. It's just, that is the type of shit that Red Bull does. I'm like, if you're going to do it, do it. Like, Max didn't do season 4 of Drive to Survive, which is respectable, but now he's going to do season 5 because he's like doing his own terms. They have to follow like his rules. I don't know, but I'm happy to see him back, because personally my favorite Drive to Survive moments were the Max and Daniel early rivalry, especially their crash at Baku. That is just like so much fun to go back and watch. But speaking of Max, he just absolutely crushed it this weekend. I mean, that's what he's been doing this season. It's over. He's already broken so many records. His race record is a little, everybody. I mean, it is his record, obviously, but more races than previous seasons. Whole argument. I get it. Blah, 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 blah. George Russell. George had a little funny line to Max and Lando before the race started. Sort of being like, you never know what happens at the first corner, and they gave each other a little bit of a look. So I was expecting George to send it at the start, but yeah, he sort of backed down to Lewis, which fair play. And then he sort of struggled to hold Perez at bay. Perez was able to clinch P3, and he actually sort of shushed the crowd a little bit when they were booing Lewis, because he obviously beat him to get P2, which was a nice sportsmanship moment. You'd love to see the drivers sticking up for each other. Max set his record. Yeah, the race was very boring. Mercedes' strategy was abysmal. They could have at least potentially been a little bit closer. Maybe not even like Lewis for the win, but like George could have fought for P3. I think putting them both on the same strategy, very bizarre, especially when George was barking for softs like really, really early on. So they were expecting Max's tires to just fall off, and they never did. They looked great at the end of the race. So horrible, horrible strategy. But, every team gets it wrong every now and then. So what can you do? Daniel put the softs on and had a little bin with Yuki, took him out, ruined his race, but absolutely sent it for the rest of the GP. It was by far the best part of this weekend. Daniel Ricciardo, absolutely love seeing the old Renault Daniel come back, because that's what it felt like we were watching. He just fucking sent it. I mean, he even got a 10-second time penalty and still managed to keep his P7, which is just mental. Like, I hope he can keep that energy going for the last two races, because in his interview on Your Mom's House with Tom Segura, he says he plans to return in 2024. So don't know how likely that is, but I want him to come back because I love Daniel. He's my favorite, personality-wise, my favorite driver. Verstappen P1, Hamilton P2, Perez P3. Other thoughts on the race? Not really. I don't really have much. It was very boring. Like I said, the NASCAR thing was the most entertaining part about the whole weekend, and it had nothing to do with F1. But it's gotten great exposure for NASCAR, and I don't even like NASCAR, but that's cool.
Yeah, I guess my my comments on the race, kind of like you said, not too much. Like, relatively boring race in the grand scheme of things. It was like we were just waiting and waiting and waiting for something to happen, or for Mercedes' strategy to actually happen, the way they kept saying it was going to happen over the radio, that Max's tires were going to have big degradation, or they were going to fall off precipitously near the end, and they just did not. So that was very disappointing. I mean, like, all weekend, I think at least 2 of the 3 practice sessions, and 2 of the qualifying sessions, Lewis or George were in first. So it did seem like Mercedes had some genuine pace this weekend. They had a chance, but yeah, just George had a tough race. I thought Lewis drove well. I obviously think that, but always think that. But I think he had a good start. Got up in second. George just didn't really have it. His race starts haven't been too great, but I mean, as much as George was whining on the radio about the tires, and I've spoken about how his whining has been a little bit annoying this year. They were right. I mean, Lewis was complaining about it too. Like, they just made the wrong decision on the tires. I think Toto even said on the radio afterwards, like, we might have made the wrong decision there on the tires. So I did, in the moment, think that if they had just either switched up George and Lewis's strategies to try and get one of them, see what happened, or halfway through, if they would, like, I don't know, I thought that not even utilizing the softs for the entire race was a mistake, but I'm not a engineer. I did watch Jolyon Palmer does like a race analysis type thing, and he was trying to break down that if they had switched Like, was there a tire strategy that Mercedes could have used to have beat Max? And it didn't really seem like there was. Like, they could have come a lot closer, certainly, and you never know what happens when the battle is closer for the race. But I guess Red Bull just had the pace, and but it was kind of a Ferrari-like thing for Mercedes to see them just be so wrong on the strategy, and more so on how another car's tires would react. Like, basing your entire race off of how Red Bull's tires are going to react. I mean, I know they all use the same tires, but it obviously didn't work. So I don't really have too much more on the race. Danny Rick, unbelievable. It was really cool to see him back driving well, kind of going through the field. Obviously, he had the softs on, made up that time penalty. Bit of a reckless crash against Yuki. Kind of felt bad for Yuki getting knocked out like that, but good to see Danny pushing like that. It's official now that he's not racing next year. He wants to take a year off, kind of recollect things. Try and come back for 2024, so that'd be really cool if he can get a seat for 2024. But maybe not the best race overall, but it kept my interest because I don't know, I've never seen Mercedes mess up their strategy that bad in terms of like, no, this is what's going to happen, and then it just not even close to what happened. So that's my take on it. Curious what you have to say, Adrian. I think you explained that NASCAR thing very well, so I'm not even going to go into that. That was really, really cool, though. And then, Danny Rick was also on your mom's house. Really, really funny with Tom Segura and Christine, I believe her name is, his wife. So funny. They're just badgering him about sex stuff, like, what's F1 pussy like, stuff like that. So, really funny. A really good interview. I'd highly recommend people go check that out. But yeah, Adrian, what are your thoughts?
We've got Brazil next week. There were some rumors that Brazil may not actually happen, but FIA have put that to rest. They're saying that it is definitely happening. The political unrest does not matter. They're like, guys, we've had a race like a mile away from a fucking rocket blowing up. Don't worry about it. We can handle the Middle East. We can handle Brazil. Okay? So it's it's scary. I mean, F1 goes to they go all over the world. So, I mean, and there's conflicts constantly happening. Obviously, Russia was canceled for the war with Ukraine. And it's looking like China will be canceled next year. So, yeah, who knows? And obviously, earlier in the Middle East, at the start of the season, there's that infamous clip of George with the black smoke in the background from the missile striking. It's like, what the fuck? You know? It's fucking crazy. It's scary. But hopefully everything goes off without a hitch. Very exciting. Hoping for an exciting race. Me and RJ will obviously be back together. Same video, same chat, talking to one another. I think besides that, RJ is going to go through his recap and his thoughts. He's going to update you on our HOS League. I've been catching up. I don't know if I gained or if I lost points this weekend, but I need to catch up because if I lose, I have to go to Canada. And if he loses, he has to come to Atlanta. So we'll see what happens. Definitely watch or listen to Your Mom's House this week. Daniel Ricciardo has a little guest appearance, and it is hysterical. I love Tom Segura just on his own, and the weird YMH world colliding with F1 is bizarre, to say the least. But it's so funny. Highly recommend it. And also Kevin Nealon, great interview with him for the rest of the episode once Daniel leaves. So check that out. Otherwise, I will see you guys next week with RJ. And I guess now we will cut to RJ. So see you guys.
Yes, thank you, Adrian. We will hopefully be back together on the same Zoom, Skype, whatever you want to call it, by next week. Much easier to do it that way. I was working nights this week. He was moving. Couldn't get it to happen. So we figured we had to put something out. So this is better than nothing. We'll be back normal next week for Brazil, which is one of my favorite races of the year, Interlagos. Lewis put on absolutely incredible performance there last year. So hopefully it does go off without a hitch. Seems like there's kind of always something political going on wherever F1 goes. They just go everywhere. But like you said, we've had missiles, we've had Aramco going on in the background of races. So this doesn't seem like something that's going to stop the race, but we'll see. But yeah, it looks like China next year is going to be postponed. Russia's already off. I think they're announcing Colombia is getting a race. But I could be wrong with that. Wouldn't be the first time. Yeah, the HOS Lg Standings, though, it was getting tight. It was getting tight going into this week. However, yes, here we go. So this week was kind of a dream week for Team RJ. Obviously, you had Max, but then I had second place, third place, fourth place, fifth place, Lewis, Perez, Russell, and Sainz all on Team RJ. So not your best week, probably my best week. You had 40 points, I had 62. So my lead has grown from 37 points. I did the math last week wrong. I thought it was 27. It was actually 37. Math guy over here. Yeah, so I now lead by 59 points. 2 races left. It's not over, but definitely hope you're getting that passport, because looks like you're coming across to the Great White North, buddy. But what remains to be seen. We will cross that bridge. We got a couple races left. I'm very excited for that. Let me just take a quick peek at the show notes here, see if we got anything else we didn't get to. Yeah, a lot tougher doing it this way. We'll have to get back to normal episodes hopefully next week, but thank you for everyone for listening. Still trying to work out the kinks a little bit with trying some new editing and recording stuff, so apologies for any issues, but yeah, definitely check out Danny Rick on Your Mom's House. Brazil next week. We will be back together next week. Adrian, I'm kicking your ass. I am kicking your ass. Kicking your ass. So you're going to have a little bit of a comeback next week, but we'll see about that. Anyways, thanks everyone for listening. Check us out on all of our socials. Like and subscribe, like and subscribe, like and subscribe. Please, we need that. Thank you very, very much. And again, we'll be back to normal. Thanks for sticking with us. Goodbye, racers.